TheChowTimePod is your host, Red. I got a video today from Jen. He's an Asian creator, and I try to, get everyone in all spaces, black women, black men, Asian men, white men, just share as much glory as possible, in my opinion. But he did a great job interviewing some women and seeing if feminism actually hurts men or not. So please subscribe down below. I'd really appreciate it. And let's get to that chow. It's chow time.
Are men trash?
Oh, cis, heterosexual men, absolutely, especially white men.
What rights do you think that men have that women don't today?
A woman can still walk a street and not feel protected versus a man can't.
Women are probably underrepresented.
It started off with great intent, but you have people who abuse the system.
A hatred of masculine energy.
It's like anti-men.
Today I'm out here and I'm asking, is feminism still relevant in today's society?
Yeah, absolutely. If anything, it's more relevant now than it
Well,
ever
is
was.
it?
Yeah, I would say feminism's still relevant today. We built this country, men, but women at the same time got to supply more men, right? With no women, the world doesn't go round.
If you look at domestic abuse, for instance, we know that it happens to people of all genders, but it seems to be disproportionately affecting women.
Is feminism still relevant in today's society?
Yeah, I definitely think it is. They put up with a lot of bullshit. They pull up with sexual harassment. They put up with a whole lot of bullshit that us men just don't have to deal with.
Of course it's relevant. Throughout history, women have been discriminated against.
It is, but I think it's changed a lot. Feminism started out as women's rights, and now it has skewed into something entirely different than what it was.
Are we going too far? Did we do this and all the rest of that instead of being angry?
Now it's morphed into something that's more preaching a superiority over men kind of stance. I work with some people who would consider themselves heavy feminists, and they are constantly dogging on men, and they openly say, I hate men.
I would say that as long as men are alive, feminism is always going to be relevant
Why?
because men.
It's today we're more polarized than ever before.
Oh,
And
man.
if men and women can't get along, it can only hurt society.
This is true.
They consider us a hate group.
The patriarchy.
But in today's lack of
Pink hair
nuance, is
lady.
it considered sexist to even question the topic? And if I had to be honest with myself, could I do it without my own bias? I guess we gon' see. What rights do men have today that women don't?
Oh, let's go down the list. A woman can still walk a street and not feel protected versus a man can.
I think
I don't get how men feel protected walking down the street. We're not protected in any way. And we're more likely to be in danger when walking the streets.
we all have equality when it comes to laws.
Men are able to walk out maybe in whatever they want to wear, or, be able to stand strong through societal pressure.
I feel like women take a lot of precautions.
I can't walk out and wear whatever I want to wear. I can't walk out in my underwear and no shirt on, just doing whatever women do, just wearing in their underwears.
Just by being a woman themselves,
Statistically, just going into a corporate setting, if you look at how women are rated on performance review versus men, the language that's used, assertive versus bossy, or kind of the dynamic of how individuals are interacting in the workplace, I do think that there are societal norms that place women at a disadvantage, absolutely.
I think you have to, so for instance, for pregnancy, right? There's no law saying employers can't fire you if you're pregnant. Or abortion, for instance, that's a law that only affects women, right?
But don't you think that's just kind of explained by biological differences?
But why does that justify making a law anyway that literally discriminates women?
And so biological differences lead to different treatments and reality. And so I wanted to take a different view on this topic of equality. Do you think today that women have certain privileges that men don't have?
Yeah, part of that goes into being able to say certain things that, men would get scolded for.
They can just...
We would get destroyed. There's some words I have to tippy-toe around because I don't want to get canceled, but I still speak mostly my mind, so.
talk completely out of their ass freely. You're not allowed to say nothing back.
Do you think, let's say, do men have problems that, let's say, that women don't experience? For example, in statistics, men have higher rates of suicide, and, obviously men die more when it comes to, wars.
Women can go to war.
Yeah, but how about,
You can. Are you majority of war casualties? No.
Go to war.
It's true. Who's overwhelmingly going to war and dying in wars?
Men. I'm not going to argue that.
I feel like the war thing is a little hard to get into just because for the majority, men are going to war. It's not really women going to war, so of course more men die.
Why do you think that is?
I feel like that's just because it's kind of like the roles that society portrayed forever ago. Men are warriors and men are the ones that are fighting, and then women
Do you think more women should go into war then?
Absolutely not. No woman should ever go into any military.
But wouldn't that be going against equality if you're barring women from going in the military then?
Well, I'm not saying barring, but I'm saying like I feel like as a woman you should know that you're not going to be putting yourself in a healthy situation going into the military because like it's harder to be a woman.
This is true. I know I know a few military women that were pretty career military, and then now they're in their 30s, like early 30s, and have major back problems, major back surgery because the things they had to carry, the things that they had to do in the military, it's not made for women. Not saying that women can't do it, but if majority of women are coming out of service disabled, I don't think it's worth it for women to be joining. Especially, they're the fairer sex. We want them to be able to reproduce. We want them to be able to do these things. And if their backs are so bent out of shape from carrying huge loads on the military, like it really just makes it so they're just drones now. You took away what biology gave to these women.
Woman in the military than it is to be a man.
I think that feminism is also, it's almost an excuse for behavior, flashing your tits or something like that, behaviors like that. Like, but if a guy wanted to pull just his balls out, it would be a little less socially accepted for sure. So.
And I agree with that.
Yeah.
Do you think in this sense that men have less privilege today than women?
Privilege is all kind of like how you look at it, what you're looking for. I think I'm pretty privileged. A lot of black people probably don't say they're privileged, so that's kind of how I look at it. We need to just stop looking and thinking everybody got greener grass and kind of just accept the fact we're not in a third world country, with Russia invading us or some bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, life ain't that bad. It's 78 and sunny out. Chill the fuck out.
And you're high as shit right now, aren't you?
I'm cooked. Thank you.
Now, I don't know what to exactly make of what I'm about to explain to you next, but it may explain what's happening with society today. An experiment called Universe 25 created a mice paradise with an abundance of food and water. The aim was to study behavior over a time period in an attempt to explain human societies. And it was all good, but after 315 days, something unexpected happened. The population reached 600 and a hierarchy was formed with larger rodents starting to attack and cause male rodents to collapse psychologically.
Under those conditions, social behavior broke down.
This led to a new class of males called beautiful males who only care for food and sleep, and isolated aggressive females who didn't want
MGTOWs.
To reproduce. And eventually, the society collapsed because of the lack of reproduction and lack of care for their young. And the scary part is that after repeating this experiment 25 times, the same results were observed over and over again. A viral Facebook post drew parallels to today's society with weak feminized men with no protection instincts and overly aggressive females with no maternal instincts.
We need to kill all.
Even though women are able to have children nowadays, they're not as maternal and they're not as caring for their children as women of earlier generations. So they are raising crappier young and more young that are more socially anxiety, has social anxiety, that has more social issues and more issues because the parents did not raise them correctly as the prior generation did. This is what was happening in that mouse experiment also. Notice that mothers were just being less motherly. They were starting to eat some of their young. When they were moving nests, they didn't care to bring all of the young over. So they were just being more, survival kicked in, and caring for young was not as important.
Men.
It's a bit of a stretch, but is it possible that that's what's happening in the West today? Is the negative reaction of feminism coming from the fact that not only are women struggling, but also men? Let's take a closer look and see what this really means. May I ask you, what are some examples of misogyny that you faced?
Oh, let's see. I went through there was one time, I'm a psychology major. We were tasked with counting how many times we got catcalled. I realized every time during that month I went to a gas station at nighttime, I got catcalled.
I've seen.
I don't get how catcalling is misogyny. Misogyny is the hatred of women. Catcalling, you love women, that's why you're catcalling.
Some of my guy friends literally make 30 grand more than some of my girlfriends, and just because they're men.
But let's say that the pay gap does exist. Why wouldn't firms just hire women then?
They have to find probably quotas at this point.
Do you think there's quotas for men?
No, probably not.
There's a lot more men in power.
'Cause
The
you're
top
wrong.
1%, a lot of the women are the ones left in the dust.
There's definitely, like, in the top 1%, I think there's definitely more men, for sure. But let's say, like, in the bottom, right? Like, most suicides are men. You know, most people with depression are men. Do we sometimes ignore that to maybe showcase disparities where it might not exist?
Yes, men do have a disadvantage at that point.
So is it fair to say then that both genders at this point maybe have disadvantages in certain situations, but when it comes to the law, they're pretty equal and even opportunities?
Yes, it does have that societal influence more from a social standpoint. It's
But you
not
can't say
necessarily
yes.
what is placed in the law, but it has everything to do with how people interpret the law for themselves. With women, it's you have to jump through all these barriers in order to even be elected in office.
However, I did hear though, like,
No,
for
men
every
have to
male
jump through
college
the
grad,
same
there's
barriers.
2 women college grads. And I believe most college students are actually women. So I guess what would you say to that?
I know that women are probably like underrepresented in like the military or in trade school, so men might find more interest in doing that instead of like getting a bachelor's. So like that's like a whole career path that like women really aren't being encouraged to do as much.
I mean, I guess would you say that there's probably different interests in general between the genders?
Now there's like much more of a push to get women into STEM, so there's like more of that. But when I was younger, there wasn't really that going on.
So it does raise the question, does feminism account for the advancements made, or will they have happened regardless? And
It
if
would have
so, is
happened
feminism
regardless.
more important than ever to preserve progress and also to prevent regression towards inequality?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it should remain. Originally, it's not a toxic thing. Again, what modern society has morphed it into, especially
That vice
things
panel.
like social media, it has turned it into more of a superiority kind of cloak than it is actually pushing equal rights.
So it did make me think, are we at a point now where there's actually male inequality in the West?
Oh,
And
yeah.
a video titled exactly that seems to be the case.
My latest book is Of Boys and Men, Why the Modern Male is Struggling and What to Do About It.
But is he just one of those red pill, misogynistic, cisgendered anti-feminists? And what he found through his research is that women are leaving men behind in advanced metrics like education and the workforce. In the 70s, Title IX was implemented to close a 13% gap in college degrees between men and women, but now there's a 15% gap in favor of women with degrees. And so
Yep.
today, there's evidence that there's inequality on both sides. And as feminism has pushed more representation for women in STEM, we're not seeing similar efforts for men in female-dominated professions like HEAL or health, education, administration, and literacy. And with blue-collar jobs disappearing, men need jobs. And the thing is, there's availability. For every 1 STEM job, there's 3 HEAL jobs. But currently, only 26 of those positions are filled by men, whereas 27% of STEM positions are filled by women. And so the more controversial a topic, the more we need to look at the nuance. But today, are we even able to, or even want a discussion in the first place?
Nope.
Are men trash?
Cis, heterosexual men, absolutely, especially white men.
Weren't you just
Like, we talk about this, like, feminism, it's with the superiority thing with racism. Like, they think that because they were oppressed, now that they're the more superior race, or like they're able to talk shit about other races, especially white men. It's like look at all the labels they gave to the person, like cisgender white men. Like, he's just a white guy. And what's wrong with white guys? Like,
talking about equality?
Oh, absolutely. But we have to have that viewpoint because of how much we've been attacked just by that gender.
But you just said that all straight men are trash. Like, that's a pretty big generalization, don't you think?
It definitely is. It's not necessarily something I'm gonna like saying via statistics. I'm saying via experience.
Are men trash?
instead of saying via statistics, I'd rather say via experience. This is how most women go about their lives, is saying things via experience. And women tend to pick the more toxic men, especially when they're younger. So their view of men become quite toxic within their lives. Why not view all of men, especially the ones that you ignore?
No, I like my dad. He's not trash, so most men are trash.
I don't think men are trash. Men just have more
See, when it comes to your dad, he's not trash, but most men are. Gotcha.
advantages. But like I said, like I wouldn't want to be on the front lines of like, you know, some army. I don't.
When feminism goes out the window, right?
That's it. 100% does.
So I wanted to ask the same, but the reverse. Are women trash then?
No, I don't think anyone's trash. I like people.
Men are trash. I don't think anyone's trash. I like people. but women are perfectly fine. Like,
Oh, I think that
You
there
already
are some
contradicted
people
yourself.
that have had really bad hands, but in general, I would like to think that most people are good.
What would happen if we said that women are trash?
I say it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think they're trash too.
I thought you were a feminist.
I'm not a feminist, no. Maybe a little misogynistic. No, I'm just kidding.
But all kidding aside, in order to have a discussion, there needs to be mutual respect. And
Correct.
if equality truly is the goal, do they mean that in all aspects? Why do you think women are allowed to say that men are trash, but men can't say that women are trash?
Because, I mean, just based off of history, you know, men have been the dominant sex. I mean, not even really 100 years ago, women were more of an obtained piece of property.
Sometimes women are trash. But I think more men than women for sure.
It's one of the many double standards.
That's because
Yeah,
of
both
what
women
feminism
and
has
men are both
turned
just
into.
as
It's no
trash.
longer about the equality of men and women. It is more the differences between men and women.
And in recent times, that history of inequality has been exposed in no other place than Hollywood.
With Hollywood's sex abuse scandal growing by the day, MeToo movement.
Me too.
Me too.
The Me Too movement in 2017 raised awareness to numerous stories of sexual abuse of women in the workplace. And not only was the movement successful in exposing individuals like Harvey Weinstein, it even had an impact on public policy through the passage of laws to prevent harassment in the workplace. But like anything, the pendulum swings both ways.
Yeah.
Despite its success, the Me Too movement promoted extreme slogans such as "Believe all women," and along with it created a climate of fear where innocent men were unfairly accused and reputations destroyed.
Did Johnny brutalize you? Ever?
And the most notable was the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case, where Heard wrote an op-ed alleging that she was a victim of abuse. And it wasn't until 4 years after getting canceled from everything when Depp won the defamation trial for the false allegations. Do you think that in a certain way Me Too movement also went too far?
It started off with great intent, and it's designed to have great intent, but you have people who abuse the system and people who take advantage of it, and they see a payday or a time for fame, and it ruins it for the real people out here who are actually victims.
Me Too is for true survivors.
It's a clusterfuck of bullshit.
And it's the unfortunate reality that any overcorrection swings back just as strongly in the opposite direction. And so is this what's happening in modern feminism in the West today? And if so, how can we correct this overcorrection before it's too late?
The best way that I could learn from you is by sitting down and listening to you and really trying to understand, seeking to understand where you come from and learning from that dynamic and that dialogue.
I say conversations like this, right?
Absolutely.
I think that we need to get rid of terms like feminism. Feminism is more of like a suppression of masculine energy, essentially. Getting rid of that sense of like dominance of one over the other would be the better society to exist in.
Because if negative attention wasn't enough, it's now becoming harder to be a feminist, even if you're a feminist. For years, the author of Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling, identified as a feminist who advocated for women's rights, whether it be speaking out or through donations or advocacy. But in 2020, it was as if none of that mattered anymore.
Yep.
After expressing concern on Twitter what constitutes of women, she was berated by activists as misogynistic and most notably a TERF. TERF stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist and is an acronym used by trans activists to describe someone as transphobic for believing that gender is based on biological sex. Due to this, Rowling has faced strong criticism to a point where it has impacted her legacy. The new video game Hogwarts Legacy is labeled so controversial to a point where Twitch streamers are refusing to play it for fear of being called transphobic. And similarly, it's this extremism masked as inclusion that's dividing the feminist movement from within and confusing the original message of equality for all. Would you say you're a feminist yourself?
Absolutely. I wouldn't say I'm not a feminist. I just think that like the word feminism needs to be redefined.
What should it be called?
I don't know. Seeking truth and justice and equality. I don't know.
The Men Are Trash group?
No, men are not trash.
And so if women are hesitating to identify with the movement, it's likely due to the impact of the extreme. Because if equality is achieved through bringing others down, it's creating issues where none exist, perpetuating double standards. But with that said, feminism is needed. While true equality may be difficult to achieve and some may not actually desire it, nothing significant ever came about through indifference. The pendulum is ever swinging, and we need individuals who push for progress and serve as a check to maintain balance. But today, how can we even navigate differences if we can't even question the nuance? I guess it's up to me to lead the way, and it all starts with exploring the unfamiliar. Thanks for watching, and subscribe if you want to see more content where I turn street interviews into investigative journalism. And if YouTube gets it right, you'll like this video too.
Yeah, great content. I actually thought he had a good mixture of men, women, different views. Sometimes I do think some of these videos are always just cherry picked from like the most radical people. but you do have people here and there. So this is where I agree with some of other creators saying that, you know, even me, I do cherry pick quite a bit of videos just because, you know, it does make good content, but it's not the overarching view of society. That's why I try when Passport Bros, when I do the videos, I give you good, bad, you know, I give you a little bit of everything. I don't want to just cherry pick all the good stuff. I don't want to cherry pick all the bad stuff. Just to like give them, you know, an informed judgment so you can see everything. So this is why I just do these types of content. I know it's not, I think other creators probably wouldn't think that I'm like such an original creator, which I can understand that. I take the criticism, but I do wish to create more content. I just don't have the funds to be able to do that. So at least like, you know, type real podcast and having people over and things like that. I do plan on having like maybe some family members over and speaking with them because they have different experiences than me, and a lot of them actually lived in Cambodia most of their life and just came more recently. So someone requested a video about that, so I'm gonna try my best to get that as quick as possible. So please like, subscribe down below. I'd really appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys next time. Ciao.